Hello everyone and welcome back to the Balanced Student Podcast. I'm your host, Aria Emily, and today we're talking about how to revise for your exams without any practice questions. Before we continue, I would really love if you guys could please rate the podcast. We now have over 100 ratings, which is amazing, so it would mean the absolute world to me if you could rate this podcast, or if you're listening on YouTube, then if you could like this video and subscribe if you're interested in hearing more. But yeah, it has been so wholesome recently hearing your guys' feedback and getting your guys' podcast requests, because that has just been the best thing. Like, I had this girl message me the other day on Instagram. By the way, guys, if you're listening on YouTube, my Instagram is by Aria Emily, and she messaged me and said that it really helped her and that she just found it so inspiring and so helpful, and that is honestly my absolute goal. So I'm so glad that it's helping you guys, and if it has changed your life in any way, or if it's just helped you, I would love if you guys could leave a little comment under this episode or DM me on Instagram, or whatever you would prefer, and that would mean the world to me. I am going to do podcast requests, so if you have any that you want to see, please leave it below, and I have a few lined up, but I will try and get around to yours. So yeah. Now this podcast episode is particularly relevant for me at the moment because I have my last exam for first year medical science this Thursday. So once I've done that, I will be finished first year med sci, which is awesome. But this exam and the previous one that I had on cell biology a few weeks ago, we did not get any practice questions for. The only ones we had were the weekly quizzes that we could redo. But other than that, we didn't get practice exams or anything. And I often say to you guys that practice questions are the best way to revise, and I still stand by that they're still really, really good, amazing way to apply your knowledge. Depending on what school or uni or educational institution you're at, we don't always get practice questions. And I remember in high school they used to give us so many workbooks, worksheets, practice questions, and I used to take them all for granted, and I was like, oh my gosh, no more homework, I don't want to. But now I really wish that we had them, because I realize how important and how helpful they were. But it's honestly so easy when they give you the materials to revise, whereas when you have to create your own materials to revise, that's a completely different ballgame. So with that being said, I'm going to run you guys through exactly what I've been doing to revise for these exams, as well as some other tips that I think might help you. Okay, number one, every time that I start revising for exams, no matter what exam it is, or whether you have practice questions or you don't, always create yourself a revision schedule. I personally do it based on the number of topics I have and the number of days until my exam. So just say I have a week until my exam and I have 14 topics to revise, then it makes sense to do 2 per day. Obviously adjust that based on your schedule, and if you have work shifts one day, then you would do less, or if you have a really free day, you could do extras. But either way, have some kind of plan of when you're going to do your work and when, because then that means that you're a lot less likely to procrastinate. Okay, step 2. This one has been an absolute lifesaver, and it helped me to get 98% on my bio exam without any practice questions, and I would very strongly attribute it to this, and that is that I did mind maps. So for each topic that I did, I have some here that I can show you. So basically for each one that I did, I created a mind map. Oh, sorry, my cat's sleeping here and I just bumped him. Every topic that I did, I created a mind map, and it would have the topic in the middle. Please don't do copying mind maps, because that's just passive learning and we don't want to be doing that. So one way to do it, where it's also active recall, is to start by writing the topic. You can also look at the topic learning outcomes, or whatever it is that you get about what you're meant to know, and then off of that I branched off what those topic learning outcomes were. So for example, this was about cytoskeleton and cellular motility, and there were filaments, cell protrusions, microtubules, contractile assembly, intermediate filaments. You get the idea. So you basically just branch off those little subtopics, and then from there you want to put absolutely everything that you can possibly remember about all those things onto the paper. And please do not look at your notes or your lecture materials until you completely cannot remember anything else. So what I would really recommend, to make sure that you don't look at your stuff before you're finished, is set a timer for say 20 minutes, and just literally, even if you get 10 minutes in and you can't think of anything else, just keep the timer going, because sometimes you actually are smarter than you think you are, and you have more in your brain than you think, and it's much better to remember that manually and get it out of your own brain than sort of cheat and look at your notes and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, when you could have remembered it by yourself. Then once your timer has gone off and you absolutely cannot think of anything else, then go back over your lecture notes or your textbook or whatever materials that you have. In my case, that's lecture notes, but if you're in high school, it might be workbooks, or if you're studying a higher education of some sort, it might be textbooks. But yeah, whatever you've been learning from, look back over that and then fill in any gaps in your mind map. So this is where you would read back through carefully and look for those keywords that you didn't quite remember. Like for example, I was doing one on the brain before and I was like, oh yeah, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, and I forgot that meninges were a thing. So I look back over and see the word meninges and I'm like, oh my god, I forgot they're a thing. So I'll add that on there, and then from there I'll try and remember anything else that I could remember about it, and then I'll go back to my notes. And you basically just want to keep filling in the gaps, and then using your brain to remember anything you can about that thing that you filled in and go back and forth like that. Now, while you're doing this, because you don't have any practice questions, you will need to create some of some sort. And one way that I really like to do that is by flashcards. Flashcards and practice questions are a little bit different, but they are still forms of active recall where you're asking a question, whether it's what is the definition of this or what are the 3 types of this. Use flashcards as a form of active recall. We are going to do some more stuff on making actual practice questions later, but for now, as you're going back over your lecture slides or your textbooks and you're finding those gaps in information and you're adding them to your mind map, those things there, or even just things that you just couldn't quite remember properly, add them to a flashcard deck. So for example, if I forgot what meninges were and I had written everything else that I could remember about the brain, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I need to remember what meninges are, then I would make a flashcard at that time and it would be like, what are meninges? What do meninges do? And so I'd make those questions based off of the things that I forgot. Now, as soon as you finish going through whatever materials you were looking at, then I want you to do your flashcards straight away so that you have that immediate review of what you just did. And then you can use spaced repetition to practice it the next day, and then like 2 days later, 3 days later. Different flashcard softwares do this differently. The one I use is Remnote. I find it really helpful, but there are plenty out there. Like, this is not sponsored, I just really like Remnote. The good thing about Remnote though is that they do have a thing where you can choose your exam date and it will line up your flashcards so that you remember them really well by the exam date. But you can do them by hand, you can do them on other softwares, it's totally up to you. But either way, if you use spaced repetition from when you make them until your exam date, that should set you up pretty well. The next thing is to explain the topic to someone else. Ideally, you do want to have a pretty good understanding and not have any gaps left. So what we did in that other step where we filled in those gaps from our mind maps, you want to do this first and then you want to try and explain it. So use the Feynman technique to explain what you know. If you have friends in your class or you have a family that would be happy to sit down and let you explain to them, that would be awesome. Otherwise, if you have a cat, like my cat here, or if you have just some stuffed animals, or just set up your phone and just explain it, because explaining helps you to find those things that you don't quite understand. And also, when you can learn to explain something complicated in really simple terms, that's when you know that you've really mastered it. Like, if I was to try and explain to you now the cytoskeleton motility, even if I didn't feel qualified or ready to explain it, after having explained it, I would feel more knowledgeable and I would feel like I understood it better just simply by having explained it to you. If you're listening to this, I know for a fact that you are ambitious and determined. You want to do your absolute best at school. You don't just want to pass like everyone else. You actually want to go above and beyond and achieve your personal best results. However, like I used to be, you're really overwhelmed and just feeling really stuck about how to go that extra mile. Your schoolwork always feels like too much and there is always so much on your plate that you can never get on top of it, let alone have time left to spend with yourself or doing things that you love and actually enjoying your life. And if you're listening to this, then you've most likely tried every possible study method out there. You've done flashcards, active recall, Feynman technique like we just talked about, but nothing has quite solved everything for you. You've made plenty of to-do lists, you have heaps of planners, and you always try to stay organized, but they never actually make you feel like you're on top of things or you actually know what you're doing. I know that you have been working ridiculously harder than most other people in your class and most other people your age, but it never quite feels like enough. If this is you, then I really want to work with you because you're exactly where I used to be 3 years ago. I was studying 15 hours a day, but I was completely exhausted and overwhelmed and burnt out. And even despite all that work, I still wasn't where I wanted to be academically or in life. Fast forward a few years and I cut down my studying to only a few hours a day and still graduated in the top 2% of the country. I then carried this strategy and enabled me to study 2 to 4 hours a day in uni and maintain a 6.8 out of 7 GPA and average 98% across my subjects. And alongside that, I've had the time to do things that I actually enjoy in my life and take care of my health and work on projects that I actually care about aside from just study. I then made it my mission to create a platform that would really help students like you, determined students who want to go that extra mile, to be able to achieve that without burning themselves out. Because having done it myself, I know that that transformation is possible, and because you're here, I know that you can do it too. And that is why I built Academy specifically for you. I know you do not need to wait for the perfect time to start your academic comeback. Whether you are in the middle of your school year, you're about to start uni, or studying for your exams, Academy is designed to make that journey to unlocking your highest academic potential as easy as possible, so that you can get the life and the results that you deserve. I've put the link in the description for you guys to enroll, so if you've been waiting for a chance to start your academic comeback, this is it, and I cannot wait to see you inside. But back to the episode. Now, because we haven't been given any practice questions, and because we do have this amazing, somewhat controversial thing called AI, we have some other options of how we can do this. Now, if your school is very against AI and you're completely banned from using it, please ignore this tip because I don't want you to get in trouble and break any academic integrity laws. But if your school is chill with it, then I would recommend asking Copilot or any other open an AI software to create a quiz based on either your topic learning outcomes or your lecture content or anything else that it can use. For example, you could copy and paste your topic learning outcomes from each topic into Copilot and say, "Hi, I'm a first year medical science student. Can you please create an exam of 20 questions testing me specifically on these things, make it multiple choice, and just really specify it as much as possible and make it as accurate to the actual exam as it's going to be." Offer that, if you're doing a full-length exam, do it in timed exam conditions, because then you'll get more used to answering the questions in a set amount of time. If you don't want to do that, then you can also look online for open access practice questions like Khan Academy. I think there's Digital Histology is one that I've been using for history if you guys are doing histology. Otherwise, there are heaps out there. Literally just search up your topic name practice questions or topic name past exam. Some of these you do have to pay for, but a lot of them are free, so whatever suits you. And just do as many of those as possible. Obviously, if you're doing them online, there will be some things where either they call a term by a different name, like they might call a neuron a nerve, or I don't know, depending on the country, they might call things different things, or they might include things that you just haven't learned or just aren't in your curriculum. If that's the case, you're welcome to learn them if you want, but don't try not to confuse yourself. And if there's a question where you're like, I haven't learned this, then chances are you don't need to know it, and it's okay to skip that question. This is very important if you're doing anatomy or physiology subjects, and that is to create application drills for yourself. I wish I knew this when I was doing stage 2 bio and when I was doing anatomy and physiology last semester, because this would have helped me so much. So what we want to do is create, if something happens, then something happens because reason. So for example, if extracellular potassium increases, membrane potential becomes less negative because potassium gradient decreases. So what you want to do is think about a stimulus. This is particularly for homeostasis kind of models or other things. Think of a stimulus and then try and complete that flow to see what the actual response is going to be. If you're not studying physiology, you probably won't understand what I'm saying, but if you are, you get what I'm talking about, because you'll get a lot of questions that are like this. So you really just want to test yourself in every possible if-then scenario based on all the things that you've been learning. So how do we actually put all of that into practice in a schedule? What I'd recommend is breaking it up into 30-minute chunks. So whether you are doing 2 topics per day or 5 topics per day, split your study sessions into 30-minute chunks. I mean, this can be Pomodoro as well, like do 25-minute chunks and then 5-minute break. Do the first 20 minutes on active recall. So that could be your flashcards, it could be the practice questions you've generated or found online, or it could be doing a mind map, and then the next 5 minutes do check and fixing it. So look back to your notes, look back, ask Google, and see what you got wrong and fix it. And then last 5 minutes, if you're not doing a break for Pomodoro technique, then summarize and say what I would actually write or do in an exam. And then obviously the next time you do that question, you want to do that thing that you said that you were going to do in the exam, because that's what we want to aim for. Now, I've talked a lot about science-based subjects here because those are the ones that I do most and I'm most comfortable giving you guys advice on. But if you are doing English-based subjects or other literature things where it's not practice questions, but it's more essay writing-based exams, then you can also look online for plenty of online prompt generators if you have to write a creative piece or a persuasive piece or whatever it is, and do the same thing where you would set a timer for 60 minutes if that's what you get in the exam and write on that prompt. And then you can also either give it to a classmate to see what you can improve on. I only just thought of this just then, but it would be actually kind of sick if like you and a classmate would write essays and you mark each other's, because then you would like learn what to do better. Just as a suggestion. Otherwise, you can get AI to check it against your rubric. But again, don't do this if your school or uni doesn't want you to do that. Okay, that is all the tips I have. I really hope that that helps you guys. If it did, please leave a rating. That would mean the absolute world to me. And it can help this podcast / YouTube channel get reached to even more people, and we can help even more students. Again, I have put the link to join Academy in the description of this, so if you haven't checked it out yet, I would highly recommend that you do. But yeah, have the most amazing week ever, guys. Bye bye.